You know, I remember Kingdom Hearts like it was just yesterday. The moment I hear that iconic Hikari orchestration, it's like I'm a kid again playing these games for the first time. I remember renting Kingdom Hearts from my local Blockbuster, yeah, remember those? And being whisked away in this magical adventure born from the most bizarre franchise pairing I think I'd ever seen. It had its highs and it certainly had its lows, but I still loved it all the same, and still do even as an adult, because despite the many issues with Kingdom Hearts, it was a hell of an experience. Kingdom Hearts is an experience that I'm sure I'm not alone in saying was full of memorable boss fights. From Disney villains like the Hydra and Maleficent, to Final Fantasy cameos from the likes of Leon and Sephiroth, to completely original bosses like the Clock Tower Phantom, and not to mention the now iconic Organization 13 battles. Kingdom Hearts is full of boss fights, ranging from so easy that even a kid can beat it, to so ball-bustingly hard that even us pro-gamer adults still struggle to overcome them. Funny enough, it's often the most difficult of these bosses that many of us go on to hold in such high regard. They weren't always winners, like the mysterious figure in Birth by Sleep or the data battle with Luxord, but for the most part, the series does an excellent job of designing its super bosses with a sharp understanding of the player's kit and every skill they've been tested on throughout their time playing. Sora is an extremely capable player character, especially with Donald and Goofy at his side, so for Kingdom Hearts to have such absurdly difficult bosses that would go on to become so cherished and fondly remembered for just how well crafted of a challenge they are, is truly remarkable. And it doesn't take a genius to see just how phenomenally well crafted a boss like Roxas is. But you know, it does take a phenomenal level of incompetence to think that a boss like Roxas would be just the kind of thing that Dark Souls would benefit from. If you had told me back in the days of the first Dark Souls that a future FromSoft title was going to be capped off with a roided out wannabe Roxas, I would have asked you if that title was Kingdom Hearts 3, because even back then in the year of 2011 when Kingdom Hearts 3 was as much of a meme as Half-Life 3, even a FromSoft developed Kingdom Hearts fucking 3 made more sense than whatever the brain-dead fuck that this garbage is supposed to be. Can someone please tell me who the fuck had the brilliant gold star of an idea to make the final boss of a DLC we waited 2 years for and paid over $40 for just Radon, but worse? I'm already more than aware of the fact that him being stupid hard was all that mattered to the investors who don't even play these games, as well as the playtesters who just want to blow off their favorite studio whenever they one up their difficulty yet again. But can someone please tell me where this fucking idea originated? Was it actually Hidetaka Miyazaki who conceived this miserable failure of a boss fight? This boss is the under the mayo of Souls bosses because all he does is spew bullshit after bullshit until your brain is so rotted that you mentally can't even focus because of the sheer volume of bullshit that you've been putting up with. Move aside, Goddess of Scarlet Rot, because Big Bro here has harnessed the power of the ultimate status affliction. Fucking brain rot. Congrats FromSoft, you did it. You once again have made the harderest, bossest everest. Unfortunately, holy fucking shit, this boss is so bad that I've seen the bed of fucking chaos favorably compared to it. You know what's really telling? I remember reading the DesignWorks interview with Miyazaki on the first Dark Souls, and one of the things from it that stood out to me was his shame in how easy Gwyn turned out to be. One of the designers made a passing joke about how easy it was to just beat him by parrying him over and over, and I guess Miyazaki took that pretty fucking personally because at this point it's starting to feel like he's overcompensating for something. I genuinely want to know if Gwyn being sort of kind of easy thanks to one particularly high-risk strategy is the reason we're now getting bosses that are so desperate to play like they're from an entirely different fucking game. Is Miyazaki just that fucking upset that some people found Gwyn kinda easy that he's become more and more ashamed of what Dark Souls even is? Is difficulty really all that matters to him now? Because that's what this boss feels like it's saying. It's hard. It's a hard boss. I genuinely want you, the viewer, to comment literally anything else you can tell me about this boss regarding its mechanics. What about this boss stands out other than the fact that he plays like Roxas from Kingdom Hearts fucking 2? Am I supposed to be impressed that FromSoft's idea of making a hard boss is now, let's just take another swordsman boss and give him a light show of hitboxes alongside every attack in his phase 2? Oh yeah, phase 2. Remember how I've been repeatedly criticizing Elden Ring bosses for feeling as if their first phases don't even matter anymore? You seriously cannot even deny it anymore with Radon because his second phase can't even wait for the 50 to 60% mark like most of this game's bosses. They are so desperate to make this boss as hard as physically possible that they have him starting his second phase at the 70% mark of his health. I would like to remind you, dear viewer, that this is where Melania, the Blade of Mikola, was given access to Waterfowl Dance. Oh yeah, speaking of which, hey, wouldn't it be like so crazy hard if every combo felt like its own Waterfowl Dance? Those combos from his first phase that had anywhere from 2 to 5 attacks in total that were actually pretty reasonable to dodge once you learned how he played? Yeah? Let's just add dozens of light pillars onto each and every swing so that we can positionally punish the player. Oh yeah, that'll be so freaking hard, dude. Oh, you know what else would make him so fucking hard, bro? Whenever the player enters the fog gate, let's just straight up have a coin toss on whether or not Radahn will immediately charge the player down, or give them a few seconds to prep like basically every other boss besides Bale. Oh man, I love a good coin toss that subverts the player's understanding of our AI. Isn't that such fucking good design? It'll make it so much harder, bro. Oh yeah, speaking of which, let's make it to where the boss's AI will literally ignore an onslaught of attacks from player summons just to keep their focus on the player as often as possible. Because yeah, that's exactly what we needed. More of the player waiting around for a window to punish. And whenever the boss AI does shift to a Spirit Ash, let's make sure that Radahn always snaps his focus right back to the player mid-combo so that it's even harder for the player to gauge whether or not they're even being given a window for punish in the first place. I mean, our AI basically worked perfectly fine in the event of summons before, but nah bro, we gotta make the boss the hardest everest. How do we now account for player summons in a way that keeps them from being too OP and slaughtering Radahn while he beats down on the player like an alcoholic father? Well, that's what the light show attacks are for. It's not like we gotta worry about frustrating Spirit Ashes with unfair punish. Fucking brilliant. But you know what? Just to be sure we're getting in as many unfair punishes as possible, let's recreate Radahn's meteor attack halfway through his second phase. I mean, yeah, the arena is much smaller than that of the original Radahn fight, and the player doesn't have access to Torrent. Oh, and we probably should make sure that there's literally no fucking conveyance whatsoever in-game as to how to dodge this fucking attack, given he can use this attack from any point in the arena. But hey, you know, it's not like players aren't accustomed to having to Google how to dodge ultra-powerful attacks at this point, so fuck them. They already paid for our content and will get harassed online by our legion of toxic self-Stockholming fanboys for questioning our fetish for artificial difficulty, so who gives a fuck what they think? We got a free pass from any criticism whatsoever. Oh yeah, I guess Radahn also has a grab in his phase too. Yeah, it's fine. It's telegraphed well, gives you a decent window to either gather your bearings or execute a punish. He doesn't instantly chain into another attack, and the first grab doesn't even deal damage, meaning you don't have to waste a resource trying to recover from it. It'll insta-kill you if he catches you a second time, but it actually feels pretty fair given how telegraphed it is and the fact that you essentially always have a second chance with it. It genuinely pains me that this boss is so bad that his command grab is the most fair and reasonable attack in a game notorious for bullshit command grabs, but hey, here we are. It's also just hilarious to me that the boss is literally so overtuned that frame rate drops have become a frequent issue for players, even on high-end PCs. Have you guys noticed how prior to this, I didn't even have anything to say about the game's performance issues? Yeah, that's because, it didn't have any. Or at least not on PS5. Yeah, well, gone are those days because this Phase 2, which is in fact the majority of this fight, is so horrendously overdesigned and overdone that it will be a frequent source of noticeable frame drops. Turns out it's not just the Dark Souls player character that can't reasonably handle this kind of boss, it's literally the fucking Dark Souls engine too. If you want to make a Kingdom Hearts boss or a Devil May Cry boss, make it in a fucking engine that can handle it. I want to be clear that Consort Radahn isn't the only source of frame drops in this DLC, but he is by far the most consistent. Though I will say, the crash I had from Mesmer was pretty funny. I don't know what happened, I don't know what this was about, maybe my PS5 was just fed up with this game also. I genuinely have no idea, but it was really funny. This boss is a fucking joke, and it's clear to me that FromSoft had just run out of ideas for making truly difficult fights. Just give us swordsman's stupid long combos, minuscule punish windows that are paper thin, stupid high damage, a million hitboxes firing off in a million directions, and make sure that it all happens so fast that neither the camera nor the fucking frame rate at this point can keep up with it. I'm sure the drones will still hark on about how it's fine because he's still technically beatable, but I think at this point we've pushed these games way past what they can handle when it comes to difficulty. I could very easily see bosses like this, Melania, Bale, and so on being perfectly serviceable in games that have systems and mechanics, engines, capable of carrying challenges with as much weight and pressure to them as these. Like I've said before, most of these super duper hard bosses feel like they would fit right in with games like Bloodborne and Sekiro, and of course Devil May Cry and Kingdom Hearts. But we are well and beyond what the Souls games are capable of handling. Again, are they seriously just going to keep making not Dark Souls with bosses that are progressively harder and harder until the games literally become unplayable? How unfair does it have to get before we all unanimously agree, okay, this is way too unreasonable, and can stop harassing others for saying so? Well, I'll be fucked if I'm the one to figure it out, because this boss has single-handedly ruined any interest I have in future FromSoft titles. No, I'm not kidding, I'm fucking done with these games. I beat this bitch-ass solo and I don't give a fuck anymore. Yeah, it was super hard, oh yeah, believe me, but you know what's more important than being hard? Whether or not it's even worth it to begin with. Consort Radon wasn't worth it. Melania, the Blade of Mikola, wasn't worth it. Bale the Dread wasn't worth it. The Elden Beast wasn't worth it. Malekith the Black Blade was not worth it. The pinnacle challenges of these games, which prioritize challenge above all, the very reasons that we play these games so extensively and try so hard to get better at them, are no longer worth it. Meaning that these games are no longer worth it. I'm done. I am officially done with FromSoft's games because they are no longer worth the effort that they require to play them, let alone the money I have to spend on them. I'm sorry if you expected this section to go on for longer than it has, but I'm so fed up with this game that I can't even bother to spare the energy on it anymore. People are already aware of the fact that this boss is shit. If you want a full technical breakdown of every move and every hitbox or whatever, I'm sure plenty exist. But I've lost so much respect for FromSoft following the release of this DLC that I just cannot be bothered to pay them the same respect I had when I was originally drafting the critique of the base game. There's an old Krogan saying that the greatest insult you can give anything is to ignore it. And that is exactly what I plan to do with this stupid fight for the rest of my life after this critique. Fuck this boss fight. The first time I beat this fucker was on New Game Plus 2. The second time was with one of the most powerful characters I had. The third was co-oping with a buddy. And the last was my first and only solo run. Much like I have with every boss fight, I avoided Googling answers at all costs and actively spent hours, yes, hours, trying to learn the mechanics strictly from playing the game. The learning experience bordered on the non-existent because FromSoft cannot be fucked to try and actually teach their players anymore. So this is me paying them back in kind. Call me a casual who needs to get good all you fucking want. I beat this bitch game over a dozen times solo, and I have clowned on this wannabe Kingdom Hearts boss enough times over to know that it's not worth it no matter how you choose to approach it. I don't give a fuck anymore about this, and frankly, neither should anyone else, because beating this boss doesn't bring me joy. It doesn't even bring me relief. It just makes me pissed off that FromSoft was capable and willing to conclude their biggest game ever on such a rotten note. I cannot believe the heights this studio has fallen from. What an absolute fucking disgrace. Oh, and I can't believe I completely forgot about it. Your big reward for beating Radon, their hardest boss ever, is a flashback that literally tells you nothing you didn't already know just by reading the boss's name. Are you fucking kidding me?